Hey folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier once again here for a Mike Sensitive movie review. I'm going to be discussing Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Oh, don't say it. So, is this why we're getting confused with the Candyman? Because apparently you're supposed to say Candyman 5 times. I recall it as being 3 times. Is that why we're having these issues with the Mandela effect and Candyman, or what? I mean, it's just so interesting. But in any event, um, I'm just having a little trouble here with my stickery do. Um, God, everything's a pain. Everything stinks. But in any event, folks, let's talk about this movie. Hopefully, we're still here. We haven't been disconnected. StreamYard's giving me a little bit of an issue, but I think I'm going to get through it. Let's talk about Beetlejuice. So I went to the movies today. First, I sat through the experience of the creator. I just did my review on that live and interactive, and that kind of took a lot of energy out of my sales. I think if I could redo this day, I might have eliminated the creator experience, save that for another day. Save it for a rainy day, Mikey. But this movie, I don't know. The creator, but the Beetlejuice. Okay, I go into the theater. It's very big screen. This is like kind of the gold standard at this particular theater. This is the Dolby screen. This screen, you can actually take an elevator up to get to the higher part of the theater. There's an upstairs bathroom in this auditorium. This is pretty jacked to the gills, the reclining seats. I get to my seat and I notice that my chair is like really cramped up. Like if I recline the feet, my feet are literally, as the kids say, hitting the wall in front of me. And like basically the seats had been pulled out like a foot from the back wall. So it's kind of weird. Like I think people might be doing that to give themselves a better angle, or maybe the people working at the theater. But I'm 6'2.5", ladies and gentlemen. So my feet are like a wall now that's gonna bottle cap people. So in any event, I look around, I see that the back row has some of those like freestanding wheelchair assistant seats. There's nobody in wheelchairs up there. So I go up there and I take a nice center back row to myself. I've been trying to do that more lately, folks. Normally I sit on the far left aisle. I've been trying to sit more towards the center of the screen. I do enjoy it more. It's just that I don't like being bottle capped. So if I have to choose, I choose the left aisle because I hate coming in contact with other human beings in general. But to go in and out of the aisle, I don't want to have to say, excuse me. And I don't want to have to fucking get someone to stand up or whatever the fuck. Yes, Laza, greetings from Brisbane, buddy. I did see a movie that took place in Australia, buddy. I don't know if you saw my review, but that was last night's, or at this point, 2 nights ago. The Royal Hotel. I did a nice review. That movie takes place in Australia, buddy, and it wasn't particularly flattering. No offense to some of the gentlemen in Australia. So maybe you have a strong opinion on that, or maybe you don't. But let's get into this Beetlejuice thing. The movie finally starts. We see Tim Burton. You know, he's all Tim Burton-y. I haven't watched this movie since we made it. Okay, thanks, Tim. I mean, you got people that have probably watched Beetlejuice 50 times, and this guy who made the thing can't be bothered to watch it once. I really do hate sometimes these pompous asshole directors, artists, all types of fucks. They never want to say, oh, I made the movie, but I don't watch it. Okay. Okay, Tim, thanks. We really believe you on this one. So Tim Burton, who hasn't watched Beetlejuice in 40 years apparently, introduces the movie. He tells us that it's been redone in Dolby Audio and blah blah blah, and that it sounds great. Okay, Tim, we've already bought the ticket, but thanks. So the movie starts. First thing I notice is it says Geffen, and I'm assuming this was David Geffen, who was like a big time music producer back then, produced bands like Guns N' Roses. Yeah, that's coming tomorrow here, buddy. I want to see Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. It's opening tomorrow here in Jacksonville, or actually, there might have been a screening today somewhere because Jacksonville's pretty good about having a lot of preview screenings. So moving forth, the movie we see David Geffen's name, or Geffen. I'm assuming it's David Geffen. I mean, he produced all these big people back in the 80s and 90s and so forth. I think he was part of that team. Like, wasn't it Spielberg, Geffen, and somebody else who had like DreamWorks or whatever the fuck? So when this movie starts, and the first name of an actor to come on screen was a bit of a surprise. Alec Baldwin. Okay, so yes, Alec Baldwin. Um, Very interesting. We know that Alec has had some hard times recently with that horrible, god awful tragedy about 2 years ago with the shooting on the film set. So I don't. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. A lot of Australian films can be shit. You do get your gyms. You get a lot of bullshit. Laz is in a ornery mood. Not all Aussie films are classic, like Crocodile Dundee or Mad Max. I don't know if this movie was made in Australia, Laza, but it takes place there. So let's see what else. The Royal Hotel. I did do my review. So we see Alec Baldwin. We see Catherine O'Hara. She was one of these SNTV's Second City SCTV, I should say. Catherine O'Hara, very talented lady, very big in the 80s. She was never like a glamorous movie star, leading lady type. She was more like a comedy ensemble type. But I believe she was the mom in Home Alone. Alec Baldwin, of course, has been in a million things. Some of you younger people may not remember Gina Davis, but she was huge. She was an Academy Award winning actress, I believe, for The Accidental Tourist. She was on the show Family Ties as a love interest for Michael P. Keaton. She was tall. That was kind of her gimmick. Like, she was the sexy tall woman. Like, what's Gina Davis known for? She's tall. So I mean, a very pretty lady. But she hasn't really been. What's the two women? Thelma and Louise was Gina Davis was one of them. I hear you, buddy. Well, I don't know how to debate the New Zealand versus Aussie market, but I take your word for it. So we got Gina Davis, we got Alec Baldwin. We see them in the movie. Oh God! So I don't want to misquote this, but Jeffrey Jones, who you probably remember as the principal in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the evil principal. But Jeffrey Jones is listed in this thing. And so he actually plays the father of Winona Ryder. Now, I'm going to look up before I say anything further because I don't want to make any false incriminations. But when I did see Jeffrey Jones on screen, it did give me a situation, okay? Okay, so I just saw what I wanted to see here. Jeffrey Jones, September 28th, 2010, NBCLosAngeles.com. Okay, so he's had his situations, okay? Yeah, so Jeffrey Jones has had some pretty bad situations here. If you need to look it up, look it up. I guess I'm hesitant to say because I don't want to misquote this thing. Um, but it's not particularly good. Yes, criminal offenses right there on his Wikipedia page. Uh, Oof, this is pretty weird. This is weird, folks. Wow, man, that's really sick and it's really sad. I didn't really know what it was. I knew it was something. But if you look on Wikipedia or anywhere else, you see the criminal offenses of Jeffrey Jones. It's pretty nasty, pretty rough here. So I'm sorry to have filtered this at this moment in live time, but I did. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So he was in this thing, but I mean, back then, yes, Bob, the great wrestler Bob Cook is yeah, some sex scandals with our I wouldn't say our friend Jeffrey Jones. Just it's just sad because the guy really was funny. I mean, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and here he is playing the father in this movie to Winona Ryder. The stepmother is actually Catherine O'Hara. It's never fully explained why Winona Ryder's character is what happened to her mom. You know, maybe apparently they're going to make a Beetlejuice sequel. Maybe we'll see something about it in there, but we don't find out why. The mom's not around. So Winona Ryder character, her character is was it Lydia? Yes, Lydia. And she must have been really super young in this movie. I'm talking about Winona Ryder. She must have been legitimately 14 or 15. She's referred to a couple of times as a child. Maybe she was 13 when they filmed this thing, but she always had a very adult looking face, if that makes any sense. I mean, yes, she looks like a young person, but she always had a very kind of, and her acting, and just her sensibility. She always seemed like a very old soul, as they say, Winona Ryder. So, she did this, and then she did Heather's, I think, more or less back to back, and suddenly she was the queen of everything. She was the queen of the '90s, the queen of the '80s, the late '80s, and then she started stealing stuff. And I think Adam Sandler put her in a movie after that. But then she was kind of gone until Stranger Things, and now she's back, baby. So interesting. Now, another interesting thing about this particular movie, Beetlejuice, is that the star attraction, Michael Keaton as the wonderful Beetlejuice, we really don't get much of him for the first half hour of the movie. We see him in a commercial on TV. In case you haven't seen the movie, folks, basically, Adam Baldwin and Gina Davis played a married couple. They have gotten this really nice old house in Connecticut they're living in. There's this nosy realtor lady that's trying to get them to sell their house so she can cut a profit. There is an actual early reference that they just suffered a miscarriage and they were trying to have a baby and didn't. They don't spell it out, but they give you enough clues, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. And then they get into this horrific car accident. In a sense, a little dog actually kills them. I mean, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The Gina Davis's character is driving their car. It's always interesting, Bob, when the woman drives the car in a relationship. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. I guess I have, but it's just interesting. They swerve to avoid this little puppy, this little mutt, and then the dog kind of leads them to peril, and they end up dying. They magically come back to their home. They're soaking wet. They go to their fireplace, but they're like, "Hey, this fire wasn't on when we left. What's going on here?" Gina's hands catches on fire, and pretty soon they figure out that they're actually dead. And there's really no rhyme or reason to any of this stuff. But I guess if you're dead, things wouldn't make logic as we know it. But they're basically stuck in their home for eternity, and they can't leave. And so the other thing that I noticed early in this film is that Alec Baldwin. It kind of feels like he's like Rick Moranis. Like he's not the always be selling. Coffee is for salesmen or whatever the fuck. He's not that Alec Baldwin in this movie. Glenn Ross. Coffee is for those guys that sell. He's not that powerful in this movie. He's almost, like I said, like a Rick Moranis type. It made me think, like, what if they actually had Rick Moranis in this movie? Would that have helped on the comedy side of things for the couple? But I think Alec Baldwin does fine in this. Gina Davis is fine. There's a couple of moments early on where they're kind of like chasing each other around the house, like they're just doing coupley things. And Gina Davis is always like running down the stairs, and Alec Baldwin's like chasing her down the stairs, and he's just so happy to be chasing her around. But yeah, he did seem a little Moranis-y in this. Danny Elfman does the score. I mean, there was a time when like Danny Elfman did the fucking music for every big movie. Probably still is that time. Then we find out once they're dead that this their house gets sold by the realtor. I mean, this movie is not fun, for realtors. This in American Beauty. I mean, if you've ever dealt with realtors, they are kind of like this. They are kind of money hungry, always looking for the sale, always competing with each other, annoying as hell at times. But they do what they do because they work on commission. Ugh, I will sell this house today. We move forth and we see that this couple from New York City is trying to move into their home, and it's Jeffrey Jones, aforementioned, and Catherine O'Hara. Now, I might be odd here, folks, but I do find Catherine O'Hara to be attractive. I think that she's kind of got this. I mean, she's not your classic, Kate Moss 1994 type, but I mean, she does have this kind of, well, she's Canadian, right? So she kind of has this moon face, like just a big head on her. But I think she's really funny. I think she's attractive in her Catherine O'Hara type of way. She's playing this woman that she hates being in Connecticut in the sticks. She misses the city. Her stepdaughter hates her. Winona Ryder as Lydia is just classic. She's the classic goth girl before there were goth girls. She has a great line. She says, "My life is a dark room." It's just nuts. So I mean, she's always wearing black, and so that she becomes the conduit. I would agree with that, buddy. Canadian women are hot. I would agree with that. That's actually in the Royal Hotel movie. If you watch my review, there are Canadian women in Australia, so you probably should watch that movie. But basically, um, Winona Ryder is playing the goth kid. She has a connection to the ghosts of Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis because she's so into the macabre. I mean, she shops at Spencer Gifts, and she basically can see them when nobody else can. And then, like I said, we really kind of beat around the bush before we get to Beetlejuice. There's like a whole movie without even needing Beetlejuice in some regard. But Beetlejuice is kind of like this additional character. He's this creepy kind of clown, eccentric, kind of like Shakes the Clown, if you ever saw that one. Bobcat Goldthwait, and Beetlejuice is just looking for work as a bioexorcist. He's kind of like a reverse exorcist. He's there to help people, help ghosts remove people from their homes, basically. But apparently, he's kind of a loose cannon, like a Brian Pillman type of the ghost world, and other ghosts don't even trust him. There's actually a sad moment in this movie while I'm thinking of it when they show like the room of exiled ghosts, like this is death for the dead, is what they say. There's some interesting thoughts here on what it's like to be dead, what's in the afterlife, what's waiting for us. Obviously, this movie is not to be taken literally, but I think Tim Burton was a good enough filmmaker that he puts in some serious stuff or some contemplative stuff, even in the confines of this crazy comedy fantasy. And I do salute him. There was a time with the score, dun 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 dun. I kind of feel like is Elfman like does he put that same riff into more than one movie? Because it kind of sounded very similar to maybe Edward Scissorhands or A Nightmare Before Christmas. So I don't know if that's something that's already been discussed by others. Yeah, Pamela Anderson, she's a classic, buddy. She sure is. I could do a review of some of her movies. You know what I mean? But bump. But I mean, dun 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 dun. So anyway, I mean, I think about all these people. Tim Burton. You think of Big Pee Wee Herman. You think of Edward Scissorhands. Catherine O'Hara. You think of Home Alone. Jeffrey Jones. Beyond the obvious, you think of Ferris Bueller. Of course, Michael Keaton. I mean, the guy has played Beetlejuice, and within a year and a half, he's playing Batman once again for Tim Burton. Pretty impressive stuff here. Gina Davis, like I said, Academy Award winner. Thelma and Louise, Alec Baldwin. Say what you will, but he's had a huge career. So there you go. Seeing the old Beetlejuice film in cartoons, would love to see the new Beetlejuice film. Well, this is the old one, buddy. This is what I'm talking about. This is the 1988. This was a re-release. This is not a sequel. This is not a new one. This is the original Beetlejuice I saw today, buddy. Like I said, Jacksonville's really good about having a lot of movie theaters, and they do a lot of reboots and re-releases. So I mean, I'm watching Beetlejuice on the big screen. Okay, exciting. So I really enjoy this experience. I have seen Beetlejuice before. It's been a long time. I remember in most of my life, I don't think like Beetlejuice is one of those movies that I really connected with. I saw it, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like sit around thinking, "Oh my God, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice." But I went to go see it, and it was really awesome on the big screen. Also, another thing is the special effects. I mean, I don't know if they were all practical, as they say in the movie business, but definitely they did not have the special effects that they would have even, 5 or 10 years later. So, I mean, 1988 standards, this thing is incredible. Certain things like, at times the Gina Davis character picks up the Beetlejuice character in her hand, and it's obviously just a gimmick. You know what I mean? It's an action figure or something, but that's kind of the charm too. I mean, I think some of the movies like the original King Kong, some of the special effects really were pretty bad, but that lets you use your imagination. Yes, buddy. This is not the new Beetlejuice, buddy. This is the original. I do know that there's some type of sequel coming, but this was not it. I will keep you posted when that comes out. This is the original that I saw. What else can I say about this? Kind of an interesting thing where what's the theme of this movie? I mean, I guess in some ways it's just people and ghosts getting along, which really translates to different people and sharing environments and maybe sharing love and sharing responsibility. Because really, a big part of this movie is that Lydia is kind of the conduit between the ghost people, the ghost couple, and her father and her stepmother. And she obviously doesn't get along with her stepmother. Her stepmother and her father really aren't getting along very well because they have different sensibilities about the house. There's this I think he's the guy that does the voice at the Haunted Mansion in Disney World. This guy has a very distinct booming voice, and he's like kind of this flamboyant, meaning gay, art guy who comes in and he's just trying to dominate the situation. And he's really funny. And there's all these conflicts, but Lydia is the child. She's like the 14 or 15-year-old goth girl, and she's got to kind of navigate all these adults and try to get them to get along and get on the same page. And I think that she does that effectively. Laza saw a special screening of Apocalypse Now on the big screen. It was quite an experience. Yeah, man. The first time I saw Apocalypse Now, I want to say it was like 2000, maybe 2000, maybe before that, maybe 98, 99. It was a re-release. It was called Apocalypse Now Redo, Redux. It was some type of re-release, and I went to go see it, and it was pretty intense, and I did enjoy it. Um, and it wasn't like the original cut; it was a different cut. Okay. So what else can I say about this movie, Beetlejuice? Like I said, I think it's about ghosts getting along with people, which really just says people. And also the thing is, Lydia is really she becomes the spiritual daughter to the ghosts. And I remember the first time I saw this movie, I thought that like the ghosts had actually adopted her and like basically took over being her parents from the Jeffrey Jones and Catherine O'Hara character. And that's really not the case. It's just that she bonds with them a lot more in terms of sensibilities, in terms of just the way she sees the world. And at the end of the movie, if you've seen it, which you probably have, she comes home from school and reports directly to them, and they share like this very familial moment where it seems like the Alec Baldwin ghost and the wife ghost of Gina Davis, they're like her new parents. But at the same time, Jeffrey Jones and Catherine O'Hara's character are upstairs, and they're kind of still parental figures. And even Catherine O'Hara's character is kind of chilled out a bit. She's not the uptight, Karen-y bitch that she was. So everybody's happy. So I mean, it's kind of a nice movie because like, although they're kind of our two central characters die in a car accident, drowning to death, and they enter this purgatory state for the rest of their existence. Hey, that's just part of life, right? So I mean, once we get beyond that, we're good to go. So I give this movie a big thumb up. I think it was fun. I am going to do another review here, folks. I'm going to do Secrets at the Museum. My buddy Chelsea Vale, David Gear, Tommy DiNucci. I am a little bit tired, but I want to give them my full attention to their movie. So I'm going to turn this off and come right back at you. So Laza, Bob, anyone, my buddy AJ Norris, I'll check in, and we'll come back in a minute for the third and final review of the night.